This is a Broadway Limited Imports Pennsylvania Railroad E6 Atlantic. It's a great-looking model with an impressive pulling ability, but it has a minor aesthetic issue that is very common on modern model steam locomotives. The driving wheel axles, as well as the pilot and trailing wheels, are unpainted. This bothers some people more than others, but I think a little bit of time to paint these parts pays big dividends. When I paint the wheels on a locomotive like this, I like to get a piece of foam from the box and lay the model on top of that. These Paragon 4 models don't have foam boxes, however, so I temporarily pilfered this piece of foam from another model's box. Where possible, it's a good idea to brace the swiveling pilot and trailing trucks so that they remain more or less level while you work. I used a random pair of tweezers to brace the pony truck in this case. After making sure the paint was shaken and stirred, I dipped my brush and began by painting the driving wheel axles. I'm using Tester's flat black enamel paint here. Granted, many locomotive drivers have a little bit of shine to them, but I'm happy with the results this stuff gives me. The method I like to use is to leave almost a tiny puddle of paint and let it settle. I sometimes find that I have to do this a few times to completely blacken the axle. Needless to say, this is a task that requires a steady hand. I will sometimes brace both hands on the desk and manipulate the brush at an extreme angle to get as little paint on the rods as possible. When I last ran this engine, I had positioned the rods in such a way that I would be able to access the driving wheel axles on both sides. It's a little awkward, but it does work. Being able to run the engine for a moment to reposition rods will make this easier. For the pilot wheels, I use much the same technique I use on freight car wheels. I fill the wheel centers with paint, then touch the rims of the wheels. It helps greatly if you handle the brush with one hand and grab the opposite side of the wheel with the other. This allows you to manipulate the wheel as you paint and can make for a much more even application. I will often just hold the brush in place and spin the wheel to apply the paint. While I'm at it, I'm also going to paint the trailing wheel as well as the tender wheels on this locomotive. Now, these wheels are often out of sight or just barely noticeable, so I completely understand another modeler not wanting to touch them. I use the same technique here. I'm just careful to precisely insert the brush between the wheel and its frame. Yes, you can take the wheel out of its frame for this job, but if the gap is big enough, I personally don't bother. After wiping away some minor paint spill and overrun that got onto the wheel tread, I let the model sit and dry for a time, making sure to check that all the wheels were still free and moving when I returned. When I came back, I repeated the same process on the other side of the locomotive. Once that side had dried a bit, the painting was complete. However, I still had a little problem to contend with. Two of them, actually. Recall the paint overruns I'd mentioned earlier? Well, it seems I hadn't cleaned them up as well as I thought. I found myself working with an X-Acto knife and alcohol-soaked Q-tip to remove the paint on the wheel tread. It took a little scraping, but I did get it off. Electrical contact on the tender wheels is important for the E6, but not as critical as it is for some models due to the Paragon 4 models having built-in keep-alives, or go-backs, as BLI likes to call them. The other issue falls more into the category of a Bob Ross happy accident. Recall how I said if the gap between the truck frame and the wheels was large enough, I'd just paint the wheels in place? Well, in the case of the tender, I got too confident in my ability to slip the brush through that gap. The result is rust-colored paint on the tender truck frames. This, however, is not much of a disaster. Rust spots on the trucks are not unheard of at all, and even then the paint is only on the bottom of the truck frames. If the bottoms of the tender trucks are clearly visible on the layout, something is upside down that shouldn't be. I've taken the time to point out these mistakes and little moments of chaos so that anyone else who is frustrated with the occasional eruption of havoc on the workbench can know you're not alone. Sometimes things fall right into place, other times the model itself does the falling. It's all part of the hobby. When chaos erupts, get back into that engineer's seat and hit it headlong. Well, figuratively speaking. That may not have been the best analogy. With the wheels clean all around, the E6 returns to the rails. I think she looks much better, but let's do a quick comparison. Before, after. Beauty is in the eye of the one hanging onto the beehive, or however the saying goes. To my eye, blackening the unpainted spots on the locomotive and adding a rusty color to the tender wheels rounds out the look of the engine and eliminates some spots that draw negative attention. I believe the best detail is the kind that just looks right and does not draw any attention to itself at a glance. My mind's eye will loosely scan a model, but if it doesn't pick up anything that seems off, it will accept the whole model as looking right. My goal, as always, is to make my equipment look right. Thanks for coming along. Hopefully I've given you something to work with if you decide to do a little touch-up on your own steam locomotives. Regardless, stay safe out there and enjoy the world's greatest hobby.